everyone. So, start, run, exit your business. Listen, we sometimes forget the basics as and throw them by the wayside as we start getting into the thick of it. And a lot of this you already know, but we're just here to share some experience with you. So today I have on the show Brian Lee from New York Life. But yes, he's from New York Life. Yes, New York Life's amazing. They offer a lot of great information. But Brian's going to share some life experience with us and things that he's seen and things that will help us move forward. So, forget me talking. Let's go. Let's start the show. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great sunny Thursday. I know the East Coast is getting a little ravaged. I hope you guys are doing amazing this morning. But this morning, again, start, run, exit. It's not all the pieces that we always all think of, but we should. And so this morning, I have on my show, I have Brian is going to be here to and share some life lessons with us and some things that we could be doing better. Again, this is a fireside discussion. I'm excited to like lay out all the pieces and have like a real discussion. Brian, good morning. How's it going today?
Good morning, Paula. Thank you again for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
So tell me, how did you get to this place? It's like we're not going to start with four scores, people. Calm down. you know, but how did you get to New York Life and in the structure that you have it? Because I'm so fascinated by your specialty that you've decided on.
Thank you, and thank you for asking. So, I started my, adult working career in the nightlife industry. So, working at nightclubs.
Yeah, I did not know
Yeah,
that.
I did that for a while. Started doing event planning for them. Started working more with the DJs that were being hired there, in these venues, and then started doing corporate event planning and then wedding planning. So I was a wedding planner for about 6 years. And then I met a producer duo in California, and we built a team around them, and we thought that they would make it someday. And they got to play at a couple of major music festivals. And so I thought that would be my path as a young man. And it didn't work out, right? And thankfully, it didn't work out during that time. My dad was really sick with diabetes, and I thought it was time for a change in terms of industry and just lifestyle. And that's where New York life really found me.
Oh, I love the way you said it. It kind of found you as well. But it sounds like you were just at that point too. You probably found each other. So run, start, exit. I know that it's based on a 10-part series, but can you elaborate a little bit more for me how this was all put together?
Yeah. So once someone gets into the world of, insurance planning or advising, after a couple of years, you begin to figure out who do you enjoy working with most and why do you want to work with them, right? So I had envisioned a life of having my own family and realized that I can't be working evenings and weekends all the time.
Yeah.
And so I thought about who's available to meet during the day. And that was business owners, right? I grew up in a small business owner family. My mom was a woman of color who owned a business in the semiconductor industry in the early 90s. And that was kind of unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
So I got to see her struggles. And then all obviously owning my own business in the wedding planning industry and the artist management field, I also got to see those struggles and
Mm.
understood what it took, right? And then meeting more business owners and networking and meeting advisors like yourself, I started to learn that there really needs to be a team of advisors to assist my clients. And
Mm.
that's where I took it upon myself to reach out and learn as much as I could in terms of how would someone like Paula support a client and what is it that they actually did. And I asked advisors like you to teach me, right? What is it that I need to look and understand for? because these are the same things that clients would need to understand and learn about.
No, I love it. And, I love that you're such an active networker because one of the things that if you're not an active networker like you and I, people do not understand that one of the to me, yes, you're possibly getting a referral, a very warm referral. But to me, number two, and it is so substantial that it almost stands shoulder to shoulder with a referral, is education. I mean, it's amazing how I was able to run businesses prior to this without the benefit of this kind of networking because I'd been to other events and didn't really see a benefit. The education, I mean, it's like a little mini masters that you're getting right there from networking if you're doing it properly, you know?
Ab- Absolutely. I think if it wasn't for proper networking and other advisors taking the time to meet with you and teaching you and sharing things, we wouldn't be able to support, our own network and our own community the way that, we would be able to do so.
No, absolutely. And all right, so step one. Okay, so our topic today, again, guys, is start, run, exit. Sometimes people are so excited by their ideas, they jump in. I always tell people to I'm kind of at least write a bullet point of a plan, something. So I'm gonna mess up your structure and add a number 11. And the top one is spend time to actually put a plan together. Don't halfway it. I almost cursed for a second. Don't halfway it. Really put a plan together uh, before you at least jump in and understand your client base of who you're trying to get to and what their needs are, not what your needs are. Not what you want to name the business or how you feel that you should run the business. Ask the answers are right there. It's not that complicated. The math is not that involved. It's pretty straightforward. To me, that's step one. But once you get past that thought process, step two, what is what, Brian?
And again, I'm not an attorney or a CPA. These are things
Oh,
that were taught to me,
yeah.
right, and shared with me from other professionals. But one of the first steps after you've created your brand, right, or have thought about it, like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
ready to
Yeah.
start this business, is to create some type of business entity formation, right?
Yes.
Is it an LLC? Is it an S corp? What type of business should it be? And the questions that I often ask are, what's the best entity for you and your
Mm,
industry, for your goals, right?
yes.
And
Yeah.
then I also would ask, what's typical, right? Because what's typical in your industry might not necessarily be the best option for you,
Yeah.
right? So I would say reach out to a business attorney or business law attorney, as well as consult your CPA to figure out what's the best one for you. So
Can I
that's what
tell
I
you?
would think is step
Can I
one.
tell you, by the way, the scariest thing that I hear people, because now that we network so much, people are like, oh, I can just get online and just incorporate something online. And it makes me like kind of because now that you're around the attorneys and all these other professionals and you hear the horror stories that are not that few and far in between, they happen quite often. Um, it makes me kind of like if you're going to save on everything else as you're starting, do not save on this portion of it. Find an attorney that makes sense for you because you don't want to just go to an attorney. I feel like you still have to have a connection. That person needs to get you right if they're going to be part of your team over a long period of time because this probably won't be the only time that you see them again. You'll probably tap in for other things. You want someone who's kind of speaks your language or is in that ballpark. The other thing that I heard that you say is it might not be right for you. As soon as someone goes, "Oh, I'm going to incorporate," the first thing out of their mouths I always hear is, "I'm going to become an LLC." And I'm like, "Why? Why do you want to become an LLC?" Well, like because it's the thing that they hear everyone else saying. And I'm going to say halt people for those of you who are thinking about starting a business. I'm going to say halt and really go speak to both an attorney and a tax professional, as Brian said, so they can give you a proper perspective on where you are. I literally have a client right now. He's 25 years into running his business, owns a home, has investment property, um, and is a moving business, and he's a sole prop. And I'm like, okay, I can only offer you names. You're still going to have to walk through the door on that one because if anything happens, that's like your family's future and yours right there, you know? So it's going to be very important, I think, to just this is not a place for saving. It's going to cost some money. The rate is not cheap, but I feel like spending that money is going to be cheaper than what could happen and losing your home or something like that. I feel like it's, you know, you're going to sit there and go, I should have spent that money. You know what I mean? So, all right, tell me about number two because this bumps up in directly into your area.
It's to kind of wrap up area number one, a
Yeah,
quote that I've often heard from attorneys. It's either you can pay them to do it correctly the first time, or you're going to pay them more to fix it.
and I totally. I
Yeah.
mean, I literally have a client who they had to unroll what they did because the form that they put it in, again, I'm not an attorney, the form that they decided to take for incorporation did not allow them to take investor dollars. So they had to undo that and redo something else to be properly positioned for that and being able to share with the IRS, etc. And I'm like, again, I know a lot of people first starting because we went through it too. We're superheroes, right? I know everything. And then the internet does kind of form like it makes you feel like you're invulnerable. Um, but you still have to run your business and you should still do things properly. Um, do this by, you know, team consensus. You know, it's going to make. Actually, I heard a great saying the other day, Brian, where someone said, I think it was the owner of the Mavericks who made a comment. There is no such thing as a self-made man. You know, you got there by with the assistance of a team. You did not get there by yourself. You know, so it just kind of caught my ears yesterday. I'm like, that is so true. There is no such thing. You know, so yeah, pay me now or pay me later, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So to go back to your question, the second thing that I
Number
often
two.
number two would be insurance, right? The right types of insurance. So things like if you own the building, right? The proper type of overhead insurance or anything more specific related to your business and your industry. If you're a professional, maybe you need, malpractice or errors and omissions, right? Again, I would say consult a insurance professional who knows your industry and knows what you need to have, right? And
Yeah.
and
Actually,
again,
I'm sorry, Brian. Please continue.
I was also going to share once you start your business, you want to also be able to protect your business, right? So that should be something that you should really look into and again, choose the right types of folks to work with.
You kind of led me into what I was going to ask you. Choose the right folks who you want to work with. Tell me about what you think the expectation of an insurance broker should be. I'm a small business, and you know, I just tap into someone. I got the insurance one time, and then I never see them again. Um, Tell me what my insurance professional should be doing.
So not only your business, I mean, your insurance professional, but this team that you ultimately build around yourself should be viewed as like your board of advisors, right?
So,
Your C-suite. It should be, meeting regularly. There should be continuous communications. I think oftentimes advisors or clients only reach out to their advisors when something has changed, or maybe they just even forget. And
mm,
as their business grows, those insurance components might not fit their needs, right? So I think folks should, at the very least, talk to their professionals once or twice a year. And
mm,
depending on the profession and the industry, it might need to be more often.
Yeah, yeah. I love guys who insurance. Well, I love recommending insurance brokers who actually reach out. They have it set. They don't just tap in when there's a renewal, but do like a subtle check-in otherwise as well, because things might have changed, like you said, right? And I need someone to advise me on those changes, even if it's a 15-minute tap in. And I think especially when you first start, so much is happening, right? On a regular that you may change out of your insurance pretty quickly. What's our number three step?
And this is coming from someone who's not an expert in the area, but I would say
I
anything
think
related.
you are an expert, Brian, because you've been through the ups and downs of business ownership. You work with all these businesses now who are going through it, and you're around crazy folks like myself networking. I feel like like it at least gives us an honor badge
Yeah,
in certain areas. We're allowed to at least stand next to the wall as they discuss things at the table.
I agree. So number three would be marketing and branding, right? And
And I did not pay him to say that, by the way. I did not. Okay. I'll give you the 20 later, Brian.
no, there you go. But it's more than, figuring out what your logo looks like, or, what should you use and what tool. But it's more about who's able to tell your story, right? Why are you different, right? What is your brand identity? And ultimately will help your clients or patients or whoever it might be choose you, right? And again, it needs to, I think, convey to them some type of personal touch, right? Um,
Yes. Yes.
I worked with chiropractors in the Bay Area where, El Camino in the South Bay is a pretty long road, right? And there's a lot of chiropractors on the road. And when we did this workshop at the two chiropractic colleges in the Bay Area, it's why are you any different moving forward, right? Why should we choose you? And the ones that are very specific, right? Well, I work with athletes or whatever it might be. That allows us as a consumer to say, okay, well, this person might actually fit my needs, right? So again, it's how can the marketing and the branding share your story and capture your audience? It has been what I have found and been taught to be very important, right? It's why we recognize the large companies like Nike or Amazon and Google. It's all done purposefully.
No, absolutely. The thing that always worries me, I mean, even as a marketer, for business owners in general, startup or, they're further into their business ownership game, is the internet's a little scary to me because I feel like a lot of people think of it as a magic pill. I see it all the time. Oh, we don't, we're just gonna post some things and like magic fairy dust happens, and it doesn't exclude you from doing I guess we're calling it old school work. I hate calling it that because it's really how you should be doing it, of reaching out to your clients, calling them, having a proper white paper for them, asking them every now and again, how am I doing? Did we miss the mark? How did we do? Like, doing the work does not preclude you from, it's like, well, I'm on the net, so I don't have to do anything else. And that is so wrong. So don't see the internet as a force field, guys, to help you and only allow money to fall on you. Really employ a strategy, please. Your fourth system, or suggestion of things that we should be looking at. To me, by the way, Brian, and I just thought of this as we were going through, that really this should be that plan that I mentioned, having a business plan. I was trying not to say the phrase. It scares a lot of people, but these parts are a very big part of your business plan as well. And I'm going to steal something from you, but if you want to shake up your format of your business plan, perhaps taking these 10 steps, putting the how together, and adding some names under there of people that you vetted that can help you for each of them might be a really helpful thing to do. That might be a simple business plan to do, because both of us have been through some businesses, and that would be a very straightforward way of doing a business plan, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I would say the next two important pieces would be some type of accounting systems and software, and then also HR, right? So with accounting systems, it's, do you have specific needs that are, particular to your industry? There are particular tools maybe that work better for you and your business rather than something else. But what's out there, right? There's a lot of tools, right? But
Yeah.
also, how do you integrate all of these tools? So reaching out to a consultant that can help you choose the right types of tools to integrate will ultimately help benefit you, right?
Yeah.
And then also for HR, they wear so many different hats, right? But it's a matter of, do you have some standard operating procedures, right? Are you able to essentially hand someone a manual to your business and maybe take some time off, not because you want to, but maybe because you have to take some time off? Are you able to do that? And then someone to help hire, fire, create contracts, even do interviews. I think these are very important pieces and should be left to professionals, because as a business owner who stepped into the business or the industry that you're in, you're not an expert in those areas, right? And it can be hard.
I did a show with Leo Manzione a few years ago. I think it was like maybe my fourth show in 2017, and it was called the Heart Attack Protocol. Like you said, what would happen if something happens to you, totally unexpected? Do you really are you planned for that? So having a proper HR system, structured. Actually, I guess systems in general, huh? Would make a big difference. How did you deal with it when you were running your special events businesses?
There was essentially, for events, in terms of the systems, there was always a predetermined kind of step, right? We knew what next steps would happen when planning an event, but also being able to adjust, right? Kind of on the spot. I think anyone who works in the event planning space knows that it's hard to manage a bunch of different vendors and companies that you have no control over, right? But again, it's going back to the professionals that are professionals in their space, right? They know their systems, right? Like renting chairs, they know how to stack them, they know how to drop them off, they know how to pick them up. I don't know how to do that, right? Or
The funny part is it looks seemingly easy for the people at the event. To me, people who are fantastic at what they do, you really don't see them doing it. It's just done kind of effortlessly. Every now and again, it will come to your attention, but very rarely, you know. And that is one of those things I've always been impressed with at an event, how they're able to. You look away, you look back, and like, how did they stack all those chairs and they're gone and they're moved effortlessly without disrupting guests, you know? So let's jump into our next step. So we kind of merged two of our steps because we saw it as systems in general, your accounting and your HR system, which, by the way, guys, I mean, really, it's become such a even bigger issue with all the laws that we have in California, all the laws federally that are coming up. And also with COVID, things have just changed. So some kind of HR system or process would be a great idea. And I'm probably just going to say, just know an HR attorney. Just have one at the ready who can maybe advise you. You can sit down with and get a consultation at least, you know. But let's roll into our last four. What's our next one? What should we be considering, Brian?
I would say find banking, right? A banker that's specific to your industry.
All right, so why is banking important? I'm just dropping my money in and leaving. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like a big deal, Brian. I mean, why does that have to be on the list? You know?
Yeah. So from, again, just networking and learning from bankers,
Yeah.
is that bankers, especially business bankers and commercial bankers, they all know each other, right? It's a very small network, and they're very well aware of what they can do and what they can't do, right? So there are specific lenders that I've learned that maybe only lend to doctors, right? I've also learned that a lot of banks don't like to necessarily lend to construction, maybe, right? So it's, again, finding maybe you need an alternative, right? But again, really developing that relationship to work with someone.
Yeah.
When it comes time to maybe completing a project, what I've heard in terms of just stories coming from bankers is that sometimes when there's a deadline, your relationship can matter, right? They can get it done. And sometimes that is with a larger institution, or maybe sometimes you need more of a community based solution, right? So
Yeah.
finding the right type of banker is definitely, I think, a must have.
I'm gonna also say finding the right type of banker before the fire starts. Do it when it's quiet, see them literally as one of the board of directors. And I love that you said the relationship matters. And let me simplify this, guys. People will stick their necks out for people that they know. They're not going to stick their neck out for someone who just rando comes into the bank. They never see you. Maybe you do your deposits online. It's good to go in and be a face and uh, in a weird way, it's a mini networking structure that you're doing, isn't it? So yeah, I love that one. It's a list of financial folks that I usually tell my clients, even though I'm on the marketing side, I really kind of push know your structure. I don't have a list of 10, but for me, the ones that directly impact marketing, people don't realize this, but it's all the numbers, so having a proper accountant, bookkeeper, know your banker, maybe have a financial planner, and a good attorney, that you're comfortable with, just to get I call them the foundational pieces, so you can stack the marketing on top of that is so important. So bankers are way more important than you guys realize. And there's one that you have here, commercial real estate. Explain to me what that means exactly.
So commercial real estate, if your industry, if your profession, if your business requires you to have some type of brick and mortar store for whatever reason, you really need to work with, again, another professional that I think would be very key, but someone who understands your needs in terms of the space that you should be in, but also someone who can understand what your potential might be,
Mm.
right? So what I mean by that is I have a dear friend of mine who I think is tuning in at the moment, but he is a flooring manufacturer, right? He started in a really small shop in San Jose. And then 2 or 3 years later, I was amazed at the facility he has now in Fremont, right? His interior showroom looks like a museum, but it's because his commercial real estate agent understood his needs and understood his vision, right? And someone who knows your industry, again, who maybe has connections outside of the areas that you're looking for, right? So I believe that individual is able to help my friend find another facility in a different state,
Oh,
right? But again, someone who understood that, hey, this will fit your needs right now, but with how your company is growing, maybe you're going to need a larger facility soon, right? Sooner rather than later. So again, it's finding that individual who your company is able to grow with.
nice. Yeah, and that knowledge, right? So you're not waiting, they're also coming to you and saying, "Hey, isn't this the next step that we discussed?"
Yeah.
Benefits and executive compensation. Talk to me about that.
So benefits, I think we're heading into open enrollment season, right? For all the folks out there that do benefits, why it's important for business owners to consult with their benefits advisors is that sometimes business owners just kind of do whatever it is they think they should be doing, but soon realize that this isn't what our employees wanted,
Mm,
right? So it's really looking at, well, what are their expectations, right? How do you value your employees? What would you like to help them with or offer them? Again, besides traditional benefits like medical, dental, vision, and retirement, there are other options. And it's all about building that company culture of I respect my employees, I care for them. I really want to be able to offer them things that I think would be valuable for them, right?
mm,
Sometimes that might be housing, right? Especially with
mm,
how housing is going. There
mm,
are companies that would provide housing for their employees or whatever it might be, right? There's a
mm.
lot of different options out there. Um, but even for key executives or employees, it's how else can you reward them, right, for their effort? And maybe it's not something you can offer them now, but it's something in the future, right?
Oh, wow. That's actually a really great one to consider, offering them housing, you know. I'm going to move it along to networking and business development. Um, so we talked about marketing and branding before. You're seeing these as two separate pieces. Tell me why this piece should stand by itself.
So networking primarily I give credit to networking for so many things I think just in my life, right? I think people
Mm,
are innately really good and people want to be able to help each other out, but you need to be very clear in terms of your message, right? It makes it a lot easier for someone to make a meaningful connection for someone.
yeah.
But networking is, I think, as business owners, we've been given an opportunity to hear and learn about different things that maybe we would not have had the opportunity to do so if we were in a different path, right? But networking, again, it's how do you share your story, right? Or how will you ultimately find your clients? But I think networking, the second component or important piece to that is how are you going to find advisors and professionals and consultants to not only support you, but to support your clients,
Yes.
right?
Mm,
So I think that's very important. There are some industries and professions where they actually hire folks to do business development, to do the networking, right? To build
mm,
those and maintain those relationships.
mm,
Um, I think oftentimes in the professional world, we often hear the saying, your net worth is your network,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
It can be helpful, right, when you get into some sticky situations. But with networking and business development, I think it's understanding what are the different opportunities that are out there, right, with professional groups or industry specific organizations that you can get involved with, or even more local community opportunities, right? There's a lot of networking and business development opportunities out there, and you can find ones that you're drawn to, right, that you can fill a need with.
Well, let me ask you a question. Because every now and again I'll meet people who will say, "Well, networking just doesn't work." What do you have to say to those people?
Networking might not be for everybody,
Yeah.
right? But also
As a personality type or industry?
maybe both, right? I've recently met a company that, all they do is, I don't want to give away too much, but all they do is, for all the tech companies that are out there, they install like furniture, they build stuff for them, right?
Yeah.
They have no inside salesperson. All it is based on relationships, right? So that is very key for them, but they don't need to go out and, you know, meet in big groups and network necessarily, right? But again, there's some component of networking there.
Yeah,
Um,
obviously, yeah, because you had to make those relationships somehow. Because I'm always mesmerized by people who go, I do really well with my business and I don't have to network or do any marketing. Like, but how did you make those relationships in the first place? You had to do something. And the image that you portray and the verbiage that you use is all part of you knowing and understanding who your clients are. You may have done it unconsciously, but that was marketing and sales, So
or it
yeah.
might even just take a change in perspective, right? earlier in my career, I'm naturally not a outgoing person. So the thought of networking in big groups was terrifying,
Yeah.
right? And there are times when I would buy, like a ticket or something to an event and end up in the parking lot and then call my wife and I can't do this. And she's like, "Did you pay for a ticket?" It's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Go
Go.
in, yeah, go in and talk to one person."
The benefits of a spouse, man, right there. Do it, Brian. Come on.
Yeah. But again, changing that perspective of, you know what, every day go out and just make a new friend, right?
Yeah.
And I think that should be your networking. And
Yeah,
and
I
it's
think we all have a bad image of networking as just being around these aggressive people who just, there's no relationship. They're not reading the room, they're just coming at you and emailing you, and I think that's so in error. But let's roll into the final step because I think this is the one that I feel I work with a lot of small to mid-size. I mean, these are businesses that have been going for a while. They have quite a few employees, business doing quite well. But sometimes my owners haven't thought you're not an immortal at all. And not a ton of planning is in this portion of it. Share with us step, I guess we're calling it 11 because I bogarted in and dropped in one, helicoptered and landed in another one. So what's our 11?
so the last step or part of this business life cycle is really exit planning or business succession planning, right? It's really thinking about ultimately how will you exit this business, right? I was talking to, I forgot who it was, but it's just through networking, and someone made the comment of how will you leave? Will it be feet first or head first, right?
Yeah,
So does that mean you're ultimately trying to build a company where you can sell it, right? Is that your goal, or are you building a company or have this company to at some point maybe pass down to your children or employees, or do you ultimately close the doors when you're ready, right? And oftentimes, again, coming from a small business owner family, when I was working for my mom, I quickly learned two things. I didn't enjoy working for mom, right? it, it took me it took me a long time to understand why mom was my boss at work and mom was mom at home.
yeah,
But I had to mature a little, right?
yeah,
But the second piece that I learned is that it's it's hard for them to understand that I didn't like the industry,
mm,
right? And my dad's goal or ambition was for me to take over, but I couldn't see myself there doing that.
yeah,
And again, I think for some businesses where there are multiple children involved, sometimes one gets involved and will ultimately take over, and maybe the other sibling wants nothing to do with it, right? Nothing negative, just not
yeah,
interested or whatever it might be. But as parents, how do you make that fair in the end,
yeah,
right? So I think business owners don't think of that either.
yeah. And
Another
by the way, how do you plan if you have quite a few children, but none of them are interested and they have their own dreams, what's the plan then,
Yeah,
So that's the other part of it too, because none of them may be interested. And that's okay. It's okay that they have their own dream, but if you're putting together a proper succession plan, an exit plan, you would have a plan for that as well of what you want to do next.
yeah, absolutely. And the two things that I would also kind of wrap that up with is that when someone builds a business, they often will rely on it for maybe their future, right? So how will that work out, right? Um, to couple that with it's some businesses or business owners, their vision is to sell their business, right? So it's really
Mhm.
working with an attorney or a business valuation expert to really help guide you in terms of what can you sell this business for in the future. Because I think you and I both have met business owners where or businesses that maybe aren't worth all that much because the business owner is the
As
business,
a business. Yeah.
right? So I
Yeah.
think it's understanding that and again finding the right professionals to help guide you to exit your business at some point, right?
Yeah.
Because you've worked so hard to build it right? What would ultimately be your legacy of passing it on or selling it or anything?
Actually, one of the big things that I always hear, Bharat Kanodia, he has his own YouTube channel if you guys want to check it out as well, to give him some props. But one of the things that he always says is if you're putting a plan in place, therefore you can sit with this evaluator or attorney or banker, your team, and go, what do I need to do to build value into the business? What changes do I need to make to prepare for that so that I can sell it, or sell it to the employees, or like whatever it is that you want to do. So yeah, it's thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you coming on and just having this conversation with me today, because I think for me the two bookends are areas that people don't really give any some quite often. I don't hear them giving a lot of consideration to until they get to like maybe that 5 year or 10 year mark, but maybe a better idea to have that built in along the way, right? Because that would educate how you run the business as well. That would be fantastic. So, guys, thank you so much for. I know we went over by a little bit, but we were having fun having a conversation. If you're interested in learning more about Brian and his business, please reach out to him. I'm going to drop his information right in LinkedIn. Go check him out. And as always, my continued mission is to introduce you to everyday experts like Brian and share some marketing tips along the way as well to help move you forward. We're on every Thursday on LinkedIn Live. So this is a live show. Thank you so much, viewers, for checking this in. I know most of you are going to be on the replay. I appreciate you. And Brian, do you have like a saying that can close us out today? Based on everything that we've done.
Yeah, it's a quote that's kind of stuck with me for a couple of years. It's a quote by Sir William Johnson, right? It's if it is to be, it's up to me.
And wait a second, and why is exactly do you like that one so much?
I think oftentimes to help achieve your goals, it's you know what you want, right? And it's really up to you to be able to share that story and find the right folks to help support you and get you there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because by the way, the phrase is not saying that he's doing it by himself. The phrase is just saying that he's making the choice to go out and get the right, well, for this guy would have been an army around him to do what he needs to. So I hope we were some kind of help to you today. Again, thank you so much for always supporting my show and sharing my information. As always, guys, have an amazing Thursday, and take care of yourself. And I'm going to steal from Lester Holtz and each other. So take care, everyone. Uh, Bye.